Hey,
Hey,
sorry about that.
no problem.
My husband's tech savvy. I am not. So I'm
Okay.
using his computer. So I had him set us all up.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you today?
Good. Glad that we finally got to do this.
Yes. Thank you for being so patient with me as we were trying to figure it all out.
Mhm. This is the first any kind of interview you've done, right?
Yeah, I'm I'm not like I know a lot of the other actors are really big on like social media and getting out there and doing things and um like I got this part and then I got pregnant quickly afterwards and then it was just kind of I was in a cocoon because I wasn't really talking about it for a while and then like I had the baby in October and it's just been in this like I don't know, I've just kind of been in my own little shell right now. So it's a good thing that you reached out to me. So because I need to get out and do more. I've had people message me and ask me to do things that I'm just like I'm trying.
Yeah. So I could start from the beginning. And are you originally from California?
No, I am from the Midwest. I'm originally from a very small town in Missouri. So small, it's called Center because it's the center of the county.
Oh, wow.
Very, very imaginative.
When did you move out to the West Coast?
Um, I did in, let's see. So I actually went to school in Chicago. So I lived in Chicago for until 2005, and then I moved out here in 2005. So I've been in Los Angeles for about 16 years now. So like the first paid job I did was just like industrials, but that was like on camera theatrical stuff, um, short films that I would do for people. And then I think it was 2015 or 2014 that I got cast in Fallout 76. And that was kind of my first like whoa, voiceover. So it's cool.
What's the story of how you got into a SAG?
How I got into SAG. So when I first moved out here, I had I worked as a personal assistant for an acting coach, and they helped me like meet some people. So I ended up getting a manager and an agent. And their thing was for me, it was like, you're like, you have to be SAG, you have to be SAG, you have to be SAG. And I was like, oh, okay. So they had me do extra works to try to do SAG that way. And I did it for so long. And I just couldn't, like some people I would run into on set and they'd be like, oh, yeah, they just gave me my SAG card the other day. And that didn't happen for me. And so finally I stopped doing extra work. And then I randomly picked up a job doing stand-in work. And I just did 4 days of stand-in work, and then I got my SAG card that way.
No.
Different.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, because the first credit on IMDb is LA Forensics.
Right. So that job was not SAG.
Okay.
That was, I don't even really remember I'm sure it was a casting site. I submitted myself through a casting site and it's one of those like procedural, like unsolved mysteries type shows. So like the
Okay.
reenactments. I was super embarrassed about it at first when I was doing it, but then just recently I was watching Unsolved Mysteries and Matthew McConaughey did a reenactment episode in Unsolved Mysteries and I was like, hey, it's not so bad. It was one of the best acted Unsolved Mysteries reenactments I've ever seen.
Mhm.
It was good.
And with the three short films that came after that, like Five Ways to Say Goodbye and Cage Shift and Boot, do you have a favorite out of them?
Well, Cage Shift is probably my favorite. What's so interesting is you've got Cage Shift, which is a comedy, and Five Ways to Say Goodbye, which is an extreme drama. And what's it's always I don't want to say it's easy to do comedy because comedy is as just as difficult as anything else, but you're in a better place when you do comedy. Whereas when you have to put yourself in the shoes of something terrible, Five Ways to Say Goodbye is a story of five children who had been adopted by this woman and she passed away. And it kind of goes through the five different ways that each of these children are saying goodbye to their mother that passed. And it's there'll be times, especially on that one, where I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like right before they're going to film me, and I'm supposed to be in a really bad place. Isn't it crazy that this is what I want to do? I want to put myself in these really horrible, bad situations that just just take the life out of you. But then when you see it, when it comes out, and it's like this beautiful thing, this beautiful piece of humanity that people see and can relate to and can, you know, just really understand, it's worth it. So 5 Ways to Say Goodbye, the interesting thing about that one is when I auditioned for it, the room got moved and something happened where I kept walking, trying to figure out where this room was. And I just kept circling and circling and circling. I couldn't find it. And it was like half hour past my audition time. And I was like, finally, I was just like, I guess they're not here. I guess something happened. And so I left. I left all the way back to my vehicle, and I got a phone call, and they're like, hey, are you showing up to this audition? I'm like, I'm here and I was so frazzled. I was like, I can't find you. And so they had to like direct me to where to go. And funny enough, I feel like it really helped me in the audition, because the audition was like walking in, seeing my mother laid out for the first time, and then me like, you know, losing it, and as a person does. And so I was already like so frazzled and shaking. And when I went in to do it, it came out. And then they originally told me that they wanted to cast a guy for the role, but they felt my performance was so on point and so beautiful that they got rid of the guy idea and cast me instead.
Oh.
So it's pretty interesting.
Well, considering all of that, do you think you have a personal preference for doing darker projects?
I am better at drama.
Mm.
I am. That is 100% true. I wish I was better at comedy, but I am better at drama. I don't know why I can just get to the place quicker. I can relate to the characters better. I see people who do comedy and I get so jealous because they just have this. And believe me, I know that comedy comes from a very dark place too. I mean, we wouldn't have so many comedians go the way they go if it was all, you know, unicorns and rainbows. But they have this ease and this wit and this delivery about them that for some reason I just don't have. But I do have the drama chops.
What about with voiceover? What's the case where you've had to get the most emotionally involved so far?
So with Ningguang, for the most part, she keeps herself pretty covered. I think they're actually, in one of the last sessions I did, I had to get a little emotional, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't played. But you know, if you do some hangouts with Ningguang, you might discover some things about her that you didn't know. And you realize that on the surface, like we made a joke that Ningguang sometimes can be like Gwyneth Paltrow, where she's like, oh, I don't know why everybody should just do this $1,000 facial. Like she says things like, not like that, but in that vein where you're like, I think you're a little out of touch, which is crazy because Ningguang's background is, you know, she didn't come from much, but I think she's been in the wealth and society for so long that she does kind of lose perspective on like what people have and what people don't have. But she is such a businesswoman that she has to keep herself covered because, you know, vulnerability in business and commerce is a weakness. So I think she really doesn't let people see anything that could possibly be weak about her. And that's why she has so many like odd and random rumors and stories that go around about her. And she just doesn't really say yes or no to everything. She just is kind of an enigma that way.
Mm-hmm. Going back then, what is your personal story of becoming involved with Genshin?
I got a call from my agent that I had been requested to audition for this game. And it was from a director that I had worked with in the past. And he told me, he was like, I think you'll be good for this character. I want you to audition. So they brought me in, and funny enough, it was one of my last in-person auditions that I did. That's definitely gone by the wayside. And most people, I think at that point in time, there was kind of a trend now to not do in-person auditions. You would either go into your agency. The agency would generally have a booth, and you could go in and audition that way, or some people would have setups at home, but it wasn't super common to have setups at that point in time. or they would bring you in to do in person. And so I did an in person for that one. And it had been like a few months had passed since I did it. And I was like, oh, I guess I didn't get it. I was like, oh, that kind of sucked. That's a little bit of shame. It would have been a fun project. I really liked the director. And at that point, I didn't know how big the project actually was. I just thought it was, just like a game, just like anything else. And they called me like in November. I think it was mid-November. And they're like, hey, by the way, you got the part. And that was one of the ones that I was like, oh, great. And then I put down the phone and I was like, yeah. I don't know why. I was so excited to get it.
And how could you like personally relate to Ningguang the most?
So Ningguang and I are similar in many ways and very different in many ways. So we know that Ningguang came from not a lot and that she really worked her way up. And on that same side of the coin, I also was raised with not a lot and was told that if I wanted something, then I had to get a job and pay for it. And so at the age of 13, I had my first job. I was a tour guide. I was brilliant. That was my first foray into long memorization. But I had wanted to go on. I danced, and my dance team was going to go on a cruise. And I wanted to go on this cruise. And my mom was like, sure, you can go. You got to pay for it yourself. And so I was like, oh, I guess I got to get a job. So I got a job and I paid for this trip myself. And as I grew up, that's how everything was. Like if I wanted something, if it was food or heat or clothing that I needed or something for school, of course my parents paid for it. But if it was some of this extra stuff that I wanted to do that wasn't included in, your general biological needs, then it was something I had to work really hard for and get. And Ningguang definitely has to work really hard, or did. I think she still does, but did work really hard to get where she is today. And another thing that you'll find out about Ningguang, or you may know about Ningguang, is that, she, on the surface, and people have said this to me before, when I first meet people, they're like, I just really couldn't tell how you're feeling. I just, you were just like very like, I don't want to say cold, but it's like standoffish, and it's not because I like don't want to meet you or don't want to talk to you. It's because I have to sit back and kind of evaluate you or the group as a person and figure out like how the relationship goes. And Ningguang, when she meets people, she's more business minded about it, but I think she's always evaluating every situation. When she's talking to somebody, she's thinking, how can I turn this into a business venture? How can I make more off of this? How can I help the people in Liyue? How can I better myself to do this kind of thing? And I love that she kind of sits back and really evaluates people, because I sit back and evaluate people, different reasons, but she definitely does that. And then the last like main thing that we have is she is a mama bear, especially when it comes to the children. And like I do that also. Like if people insult me, I'm like, oh, man, that sucks. People insulted me. If people insult people I love, that's when the claws come out. And it's the same way with Ningguang. Like if people come at her, it all just kind of goes into this, oh, well, that's how people see me kind of thing. But when they go after people that she cares about, then that's when you better duck and cover, because she's coming. So.
What do you think was or is like the biggest difficulty that you faced while getting into her headspace?
Money's great. Money's great, of course. I don't value money like she values Mora. To Ningguang, Mora is life, and business is fun. Like it's the most fun thing for her in the entire world, to go out and make money and to make a deal and to feel like you came out on top of the deal. Like that's really difficult for me, because I would tell people, like, you know, when you do a day job, like when you're bartending or doing something like that, like they would call me and I could be I could be like, I really need the money. And they'd call and be like, hey, do you want to have tonight off? And I'd be like, yes, yes, I do. Like, and because they just, you know, and I know people like her that would, I have a friend who was like, I would take the night off, but then I would just be sitting at home and I'd be like, oh my gosh, how much money am I missing out on? And
Mm.
that's not me at all. If I take the night off, I'm not even remotely thinking about work or money or anything. I'm generally enjoying my time off. And Ningguang is like that. If she were to miss out on some type of business deal or something, then she would be concerned about what she would be missing out on. So I had to come at her in a different way, come at that at a different angle on why that's important to her, because I can't come at it straight because it wouldn't have come out truthful because that would have just been me like acting my way through it.
Mhm. And what are your that's like $1 million question. What are your personal opinion or theory of like what her relationship with Beto is?
I was like, I know he's going to ask me this question. And the funny thing is in the last session we recorded, I had a back and forth with the director about it. And I'm going to tell you that the answer is that there is no answer.
Mhm.
And I know people don't want to hear that. But what makes that so great, because her and Beto have this phenomenal relationship. Like, Beto is like the thorn in her side, but at the same time, you see that there's more there. Definitely a love-hate relationship between them. But does it go further than that? That's, the question that none of us know the answer to. And I actually don't know the answer to it. I have an opinion. I'm going to keep it to myself, though, because what I think is so great about it not being like so overtly obvious, well, I guess some people think it's overtly obvious, but so out there, the question answered, is that you can make your own opinion. You can form your own opinion about what that relationship is and how far it goes. And it kind of makes it, and the mystery is kind of fun too.
Mhm.
But yeah, the truth is that there is actually no answer to that question. So I know it's not what people want to hear, but you form your own opinion about it, and that's the right answer.
Mhm. Yeah, well, having talked to, I just did a Allegra Clark
Mm-hmm.
this past Monday, and it's interesting that she had her own like really deep kind of analytical opinion about it, but she also said too that it's like up for people to decide.
Right. Well, one thing you have to remember about Ningguang is, and this is something that the director says to me every time I say a line, and I remind myself too, is Ningguang has been in the public eye for so long and has such power. And say, how do I put this? Every relationship she has, every conversation she has, every move she makes is always in the back of her head. How can this benefit me? And I don't think it's not like a narcissistic thing. It's a business mind that she has, because we've seen her give up her most prized possession in the entire world to save. So she has that capacity. So when she's thinking, how does this benefit me? It also, how does this benefit Leah? I think Leah is her heart and home, and what is her driving? It's her driver and how she makes all of her decisions. So a relationship to her, I don't know if she would ever come out and let anybody know how she truly, truly felt. So it's like, even if they're like, yeah, there was a relationship, or no, there's not a relationship, I don't think Ningguang, and that might be the reason why they've never definitively said yes, no,
Mhm.
is because of that, is, being in the public eye like that, you never want to be manipulative. It's like that superhero complex of, Superman can't ever tell Lois Lane who he is because then his enemies might come after her, right? So, in the same sense, Ningguang can't really, in my opinion, and somebody might have a different opinion, in my opinion, she can't really be as close to people as she might want to be because then her adversaries might come after them or might use that as a weakness on her to get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So, who knows if that's right or wrong, but that's kind of how I look at it.
Mm-hmm. And what's been so far? What's been your like personal favorite aspect of her storyline and arc?
I really, really love how deeply she cares, and you don't always see it.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time you don't see it, but she does deeply, deeply care about her people and her home. And she would, as we have seen, do anything to save them and to help them. And like I said, I think most of the business deals that she does, while yes, they benefit her, but everything that benefits her also benefits Lewa. And I think that has more to do with why she is so business minded and why she keeps going so hard at things and why people keep asking her, well, don't you have enough more? And she's like, what? No, you never have. And you never have enough of this. And I think it's because everything that she gets, everything that benefits her in turn benefits her people. And that's kind of what keeps her afloat. And that's what I love so much about her is you think she's one way. And then when you really get a look at her, you're like, maybe not. Maybe there's more to her than I first thought.
Mm-hmm. And when it came to developing the voice, was there any reference to the Chinese or Japanese?
No, actually, they didn't. I didn't even hear it. I didn't hear it at all. Which is funny because some of the games that, actually, most of the games I work on that have been done in another country, they will actually let you hear the voice reference and hear the performance first. And you kind of go with it from there. But on that one, they just gave me a really small description, just very base description of Ningguang and how she was kind of basically in the government and powerful in that right. So, and I'm trying to remember, I think there was a drawing of her too, which is always very helpful when you see a drawing because you can, I don't know why, you as a voice actor, you get an idea of like, oh, I think this person sounds like this. And I always felt like because of the powerful nature of her, that she has this full like resonant voice. So when I do Ningguang, I use like it vibrates through my chest. That's how she is. And I also am very physical in the manner of like, how does Ningguang stand? So when I'm in the booth and I'm doing Ningguang, I have to use the full resonance in the chest, and then I pop into one hip, and then I'm either holding my pipe, or I think of her as holding like a drink in one hand. And as she's talking, she has this way of talking to people that is a little up because she is so in power that, she doesn't talk on the same level to people. Mostly she's here and then they're here. And then that's how she kind of talks. I don't want to say she talks down because that has a negative connotation, but she is here. She is cocked into one hip and she's very forthcoming with, she is all encompassing with her voice and how she speaks. So commanding. That'd be a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some of your personal favorite lines?
I was thinking about that. And I actually think that my favorite, I don't even know if I have some of my favorite lines. I don't know if any of the other actors told you this, but when we first started recording, the MiHoYo representatives were there with us, and they were very adamant that anything Chinese be pronounced correctly.
Yeah.
Right. And and even like we had questions like, why must you call it Leah? Why don't you call it center? Like the American audience wouldn't care as much. And they were like, no. We want to keep it as faithful to the Chinese as possible. So when I first went into the booth, one of the very first lines is Ningguang's introduction, which I think is one of the first lines in the game. The hello line where she's like, I am Ningguang. I am, what is it? It's like, I am Ningguang. I am I wrote it down. Oh, yeah. I am Ningguang, the Tianqian of Qixi, you be my bodyguard and I'll show you how to go through Liyue. And I looked at that line and I immediately like froze because there was Qixing, there was her name, Ningguang, which I wasn't sure how to pronounce at that point. There was Liyue, which is harder to pronounce than you think. And like, I was like, oh my God. And I did the line and they're like, no. And I did the line, they're like, no. And one of the representatives came out of the booth, came into my booth, and he like got face to face with me, and we would go back and forth and we would say, Liyue, 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 Liyue. And he'd be like, no, 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 yes, go. And then we try to record it and he'd be like, no. And then we'd do it again. And we keep going back and forth until, and even now I listen to that line because that was probably the first or second line I recorded. And I'm like, oh, to me, it's like slightly off. I'm like, oh, I wish they'd let me redo that line just a little bit. But it not only has kind of a lot of Chinese words in it that were difficult for me, but it also, if you listen to that line, it basically tells you exactly who Ningguang is, like right from the start. So when I go into character for Ningguang, I stand up, cock my hip, got my drink in my hand, use my full chest, and I'm like, I am Ningguang. And I'll say that, I am Ningguang, until she comes through. And it's been a line that I remember, and it's been one of my favorites because it was one of the most difficult for me, and it is also who Ningguang is. Just that one line tells you exactly who Ningguang is.
Mm-hmm. What about with like some of the flirty ones that she has?
What's funny about any flirty line that she has is you always have to remember that, and the director will tell you, what is her benefit from this? How does this help her? So it's, even though the lines seem a little flirty and seem a bit less Ningguang-y, there is always that in the back of your head of, how does this benefit Ningguang? How does this benefit Liyue? How can I get a business arrangement out of this? And if you go back and listen to the lines, you might actually think something different now that I told you that. Every relationship, every line.
What about with outside of Beto, who are your like favorite character interactions that she has with other main characters?
That's tough because obviously Beto is the most fun. I mean, I guess, just even her interaction with the Traveler is very interesting, because you go back and forth on what is the relationship between these two. Why does she go out of her way? Like, why does she decide to help him or her, whoever you decide to play? Why does she come out of the way and do that? And I know it's just kind of fascinating to dig like what her motivation and what her intention is with her and the Traveler, because I don't think the Traveler is a person that she would go out of her way normally to befriend and to get into a relationship with. And by relationship, I don't mean romantic, but just, have a form a relationship with, because of how she is, but yet she does decide to do that. And I think that makes that relationship, and again, Ningguang's choices, it makes it more interesting for her to look at business-wise. And, I guess it adds another mystery of, why exactly did she do this?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the question's not completely answered yet. So as the game goes, I think we'll find out more and more. Like, more has come out, but I think we'll find out more and more of what does Ningguang knows everything. So it's like, what does she know? I feel like she must know something. She knows something a little bit more than we do.
Do you think that she could like ever genuinely fall in love with somebody?
Yeah, I do, but I don't know if you'll ever know it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it goes back to the protection of her really having to protect herself and protect what she holds dear. And being in love with somebody can be seen as a weakness. And again, this is just my take on it, but it can be seen as a weakness. And, you have to cover that. especially with a person and holding as much power as Ningguang does.
Mm-hmm. And so with the fighting side of her and like the efforts and what does it look like in the booth for you when you're doing that?
Okay, so this was really funny for me because I had come off of games where I play bigger characters. But Ningguang is probably one of the most powerful characters I play. So when they would ask me to do an effort, I would be like, I'd make it like a big effort, and they'd be like, no, 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 no. And I remember the first time I did that, they were like, how should we put it? Can you make it more beautiful? And I was like, more beautiful. Okay. And, finally it came around to what I finally understood, is, especially in the Chinese, is that so when when you're throwing down the jade chamber, right? You would think it would be like a huge, yeah, kind of effort thing. And she was like, which was very, very odd to me. But I understand it's kind of the, anime is Japanese, but, the anime-esque part of the character where the women are extremely feminine.
Mm-hmm.
They're extremely, extremely feminine. So there's not that kind of masculine groaning where, like, in another game, I'm heaving an axe and I'm wearing like this breastplate armor where, that is going to sound different than Ningguang, who has all this power, but is in the core is extremely, extremely feminine. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting and a little tough for me, but that's, how the efforts go, is like, when they asked me to do efforts in this game, I'm like, no problem. Like, I'm not worried about like losing my voice or do anything like that, because it's less effort for these efforts, because it is so grounded in the femininity and the beauty rather than the raw, like guttural lifting and shoving and dying that you would see in another video game.
And back to the storyline of it, do you have a like favorite hangout ending?
When you just hang with her and relax for the day, and she talks to you about how important, sorry, I'm trying, like, how do I don't want to give away story to anybody. I'm sure most people have already played it, but just in case, like, just how important Leah and the Jade Chamber and how important all of that stuff was to her. And you think you really see a lot of heart in Ningguang because of everything that kind of has happened. And you get to see the side of Ningguang that you never get to see, and you probably won't get to see for a long time if you don't do that particular hangout. So yeah, it's that the hangouts were my most favorite recordings so far. Like, I just really got to dig deep and be a fully rounded character with so many intricacies that everybody else that I already knew was there, but everybody else finally gets to see too. So it's funny because, she is Scrooge McDuck. Like, if she had Mora in a big piggy bank, she would swim in it just like Scrooge McDuck would do. But she does it in a way where she's not like an old miser, So yeah, it is like, yeah, she's the Scrooge McDuck of Genshin Impact.
Or your thoughts when you saw the like new skin, like dress outfit that she got?
Well, I knew it was coming. I didn't get to see what it was until I think I saw it at the same time everybody else got to see it. And I'm a super nerdy person that when I play a game and I can change outfits, like, the outfit is super important for my character. I don't know if you remember the game. What was it? Fable. Did you ever play Fable?
Yeah.
I loved like getting the clothes and dyeing the clothes and like piecing together an outfit. Like, even if it wasn't like the best armor outfit, I'd be like, but it looks really good. So when I found out that she was going to get a new skin and she's going to get new clothes, I was super excited. And it looks, you're so used to Ningguang wearing, the white and the gold with the red. So when you see the blue outfit, it's like, whoa, it's pretty pretty good. It's a pretty good looking outfit.
Mhm.
I hope people like it. I love it. I think it's gorgeous. So I hope people like it too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you like actively play the game then?
So when it first came out, I did. Then I got kind of busy. Like, the game is so big, and like I said to you, I'm a completionist, and I have to be careful because I will lose my life to a game. And I kind of had to step back from the game, but I keep tabs on what's going on because obviously I need to know what's going on. For otherwise, I'd go in the booth and they'd be like this, and I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I do keep tabs on what's going on in the game and kind of the looks that are coming out and the interactions. And of course, I get more insider information on what's happening in the game because of the voiceover work. So, not actively playing at the moment, but it's again, it's one of those games that you can lose your life to, and you would have fun doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And Mora, you'd lose some Mora doing it too.
Mm-hmm. What do you think you would want to play if you weren't Ningguang?
I wish I was as badass as Beto is. And it's like the pirate. I mean, obviously she's not a pirate, but it's that type of character. She's really gritty and grounded, and like Beto's got that really awesome. I don't know. Like the director, he didn't think of me for Beto. He thought of me for Ningguang. He's like, that she'd be better at this character than this character. So I wish I was a bit grittier. I wish I was a bit sassier. Like I like the sassier characters, but I don't think I pulled them off as well as other people do.
And I kind of have this like every other Genshin interview I've done, it's like a running joke thing for people to do Zhongli's wine line in their own character voice.
So let me question for you: why is this line like the epitome of all lines
I
for
have no
him?
idea. Like the fandom like decided it, and it's like I don't know.
Well, and then see, this is where I would ask my voice director, Osmanthus. Is that how you pronounce that? Osmanthus? Osmanthus wine tastes as good as I remember. But where are those who share the memories? There she is.
That sounds good. Yeah.
There she is.
Thank you.
That's so funny that's so funny that line has been like the fandom line.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Somebody decided, it was like you said, somebody decided it, but that's kind of funny how things kind of steamroll and it becomes the thing.
Mm-hmm. And so with on topic of fans, have you gotten like several or like a single highlighted story of how your performance helped them in some way? Or
no, so I'm not as active on social media as a lot of these actors are, and so not with Genshin. I haven't. I did Transformers for Netflix. I did the voice of Airraiser, and I had somebody contact me and made me cry, basically, with how much they loved the performance and how much it meant to them. I haven't had anybody do that with Ningguang yet. So maybe somebody will, or, maybe like Ningguang can be a character that you love to hate at the same time. Because of her position and her power and how she looks at the world. So maybe somebody's related to her and maybe not. It'd be cool if they did. But I try to reply to as many people on Instagram as I can. I always feel bad when people reach out to me and they're like, hey, can you do this happy birthday for me? Can you do this? And I always want to do that. But with my baby at the time, it's very, very difficult for me to get things out there. And just know that to anybody watching this, I read all your stuff. I love all your stuff. I try to comment and repost, and I love the fan art that people put up and the cosplay. There's just phenomenal cosplay that I see people do of Ningguang that I just can't even imagine the level of craftsmanship that people use when they make these costumes. And now they've got a new costume, so I'll be able to hopefully get to see that. So I know that she does mean things to people because they wouldn't reach out to me otherwise, but nothing that's made me cry yet. I'm sure there's somebody out there. Not that they all have to reach out and make me cry, but yeah.
Well, I did want to ask too, what was the story of how you got involved with Transformers?
I got an audition through my agent and sent in an audition that way. I didn't know what I was auditioning for. I don't know. Like a lot of times in voiceover, they try to keep everything super hush hush. Video games, especially, but they try to keep things super hush hush. And but weirdly, they did say, "Hey, the voice reference is like Air Razor from Transformers." So, when I realized what it was, I was like, "Oh, well, that was like super obvious." And I listened to the original, and she has this fantastic texture to her voice that I don't have.
Mhm.
And I could try to mimic her. And I was like, okay, what do I do? Do I try to mimic her, or do I just kind of take it and do my own thing with it? And I ended up just deciding that it was just best for me to just do my own thing with it. And I did. And I guess I got cast that way, which was great. So, I mean, to anybody who's like, full huge, Beast Wars, Transformers fans, and they were looking for somebody to do a voice match, that's not what my performance is. And I know some people were very upset that not all the actors were doing these voice matches. But it's kind of fun that they allowed us to come in and do our own take of the characters too. So that, I mean, eventually everything gets replaced, how many different Batmans have we had? How many different Jokers have we had? How many different James Bonds have we had, eventually? And you can't keep doing, even if you go way back and you listen to old Mickey Mouse,
Right.
and you listen to Mickey Mouse now, it's not exactly the same. And everybody kind of has their own carnation of what Mickey Mouse sounds like. So it's like, even if we all tried to do like the exact voice match that these iconic actors created, these iconic actors created, we would still sound a little bit different because it's a different actor doing it and a different intention behind it. So it was, I was so honored to be a part of Transformers, and I was so excited to see the show on Netflix. That's probably been like the biggest thing I've ever done. And I don't know if anybody's ever had a chance to watch it, but I cried at the end of it. The Alita 1 character, did you get a chance to watch?
I've seen some of it, yeah.
It had me crying at the end. And to me, that's a good show.
Mm-hmm.
If it moves me that much, then it did its job.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Do you have a preference now for like pursuing voiceover opposed on camera, or is it still both?
I still do both, but I do have to say that I have an affinity for voiceover more now. The pressure is different.
Mm-hmm.
The pressure when you go on and you go onto a set, and especially if you're going on to a show that's ongoing or that you haven't been on in the beginning, is like they point at the camera at you and they're like, and go. Mm-hmm. And in a weird way, it's slightly easier because you're in costume, you're surrounded by people. The other actor you're playing off of most of the time, I've never had an instance where the actor wasn't there reading the lines, but you have your other actor to play off of and play the scene with. But I do really like going into the booth, and while you don't have anybody to play off of, I mean, that's what the voice director is for, is to keep it in the same pocket. So it sounds like you're having a conversation. Like, I've never done a session where you've had two people bouncing off of each other. I know that sometimes they do that in animation, but it's difficult. It's difficult to get everyone together. So most of the time they prefer to just have, each actor come in and do their own. Instead of playing off of somebody else's energy and somebody else's intention, you can come at the line the way you saw it, with your own intention, without it being overshadowed by anything else. And I think that makes it more genuine. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, you don't have to memorize things, which takes some of the pressure off too. Mm-hmm. I'll never give up on camera work too. I'll still pursue that too. But I do think right now, I'm having much more fun on voiceover. It's not just doing voices. It's really embodying the character that you play. So Ningguang does not sound super different than me. She's not how I talk every day, but she's not so far away from me. But there is a different posture and a different attitude and a different embodiment that I have to do to be her. And I think that's what the teacher was talking about when she was talking to me about voiceover. And so whereas I don't do, Jim Dale type voices, everybody I do play is slightly different. It's not just me talking. There's always what does the body look like? How does this person stand? How does this person breathe? Like that, like everything it comes in and really, hits on and develops who your character is.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds slightly different than me. Still me, but slightly different.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything else coming that you can safely talk about that you're part of? Or?
I do have a game coming out next month. I can't tell you what it is. I know that's the thing about voiceover. I can't tell you what it is yet. And I have a feature film that is in the works right now. It's an indie feature that hopefully will come out. That one, that was filmed during COVID, and I know they need to do some reshoots with it, but that will be a fun one if and when it comes out. But yeah, it's no fun being an actor sometimes because you can't tell everybody what you're working on. But I know one video game coming out next month that I'm super excited about. And another one that I don't know what the date is for it, and then the feature, which would be really fun when that one comes out. And of course, we always have, you never know when more Genshin stuff is coming.
Mm-hmm. I know, of course, your career is still going in Boston. My final question is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
When I first started acting, it was more because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Some people, I had a cousin, knew she wanted to be a vet from like the day she was born. And I would always look at her and be like, but what do I want to be? But what do I want to be? I don't know what I want to be. I don't know what I want to be. And when it came time to go to college, my mom was like, why don't you be a physical therapist? And I was like, yeah, I'll be a physical therapist. I'll be a physical therapist. And I started looking at colleges, and I would go to these colleges, and then I would just immediately get so overwhelmed and be like, no, this isn't right. This isn't right. This isn't right. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. And then randomly I had a friend, and I danced all through junior high school. But I didn't want to really pursue that professionally. That is also an extremely difficult career, and dancers are phenomenal. But it wasn't something that really appealed for me to do professionally. But one of my dance friends had been like, hey, I went to this, school in Chicago, and they've got like a good theater program. Did you ever think about doing that? And I was like, it was the first time like bells went off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I don't know. Is that something I want to do? And I went and looked at the school, and it's in Chicago. I went to Columbia College in Chicago, and I had just toured the theater building, and I was walking along Michigan Avenue, one of the main buildings there. And I knew, all of a sudden, I just knew that was where I was supposed to do, that I was where I was supposed to be, and this is what I was supposed to be doing. And after school, I got a little sidetracked. I graduated from college, and I was still in Chicago, and I wasn't really pursuing anything. And I think I was cocktailing at the time, just kind of floating, and I was watching, what's the movie's name? It is Wicker Park.
Oh, yeah.
So, which, is not the most phenomenal movie you've ever seen. But, so I'm watching Wicker Park. I'm super depressed because, life's not going anywhere. And it's the end scene where they're in the airport, and she's kneeling down. Is it she's kneeling down or he's kneeling down, going through their stuff, and the other one comes up behind him, and it has Coldplay playing. Yeah. It was like, and I just burst out into tears. And I was like, oh my God, this is moving. Like, it was just like, it moved me so much. And I had recently been and talked with this acting coach that had traveled and had visited in Chicago, and he had extended to me to come to work with him in LA. It's like, you should come to LA, come work with me. And then you should make a decision on whether you want to come to New York or LA. And I was dragging my feet because, you know, at the time I just didn't have any direction. And so I watched this movie and I watched the scene, and I just like, it like hit me to the core, which again, not the most phenomenal movie in the world. I'm sure a lot of people have never seen it. And I'm sure people will watch the movie and be like, I don't know what she's talking about. But for some reason, it just hit me. And I wrote this email to this acting coach. And I don't even remember what I said, but it was extremely passionate email about being an actor and why I wanted to be an actor and would he help me. And he called me like first thing in the morning the next day, and he was like, holy goodness, this email, what the heck? And so I came out here. And so anytime I think about being an actor or what acting means to me or the legacy I want to leave behind, what that scene in that movie did for me at that moment was gave me direction to what I knew I wanted to do, but was having a hard time doing. It gave me the courage to really seek out being an actor and to make the move from Chicago to Los Angeles. And I want, for people who watch my performances, I want them to be able to, I don't know, be able to dig deep inside themselves and see things and know things and do things that maybe they wouldn't have done if they hadn't have watched the performance or saw the performance. And it doesn't have to be an actor. It could just be like, maybe, you know, I need to have a conversation with my father and I'm afraid to do it. Like, you know, things like that, because that was the gift that those two actors, it's Josh Hartnett and I can't remember what the girl's name is. It's horrible. That was the gift that those two actors in that scene gave to me. And I feel like it's one of those, you know, like, pass it on, pay it forward. And so that's what I hope can inspire in people when they see or watch or anything with my performances. Sorry, it was a very long-winded answer.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that we got to do this.
Thanks, Chris. It was so nice. Thank you for reaching out to me.
I'll be sure to, of course, send it to you once I have it up as well.
Absolutely, and I'll post it. And I've had some people ask me on Instagram if I was doing any interviews, so I'll have something for them to watch.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.